Breaking news just in the last hour. Christine Blasey Ford's attorney making an 11th hour desperation play with the Senate Judiciary Committee. Just moments ago, she asked for yet another day for Dr. Ford to consider the committee's offer for her to testify this coming Wednesday. The response coming in just before 10 p.m. Eastern deadline tonight. Joining us now with reaction is John Yoo, former general counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Former U.S. Attorney David Katz is with us, along with former federal prosecutor John Lauro. Let's start with John Lauro. John, for a lot of us who've been watching this over the last few days, we've been concerned about moving the goalposts.
Yes.
I believe the testimony was supposed to be on Monday, not Wednesday.
Right.
But so she was supposed to respond about appearing on Monday. I think they're negotiating about Wednesday. But nevertheless, the goalposts keep moving. It's a smart lawyer, I think, representing this accuser because she's pushing it into the last minute to get her client as much time, leeway as she can. But at what point does the committee's patience run thin here?
I think they're just about there. She has to either put up or shut up. How much preparation time does she need to tell the truth? That's the question. I mean, she's been dealing with lawyers for weeks, if not months now. It's time for her to face the music. She's made a very serious accusation, and it's now the moment of truth comes. She has to face questioning. She has to be asked the tough questions, and she can't escape it. If she refuses to testify, then the bottom line is that he's going to be confirmed and this thing is over. But there's a legal expression for what her lawyer is doing, and that's jerking around. You know, every time they reach a point where there's an agreement, then all of a sudden, you know, as you say, the goalposts move, and that's just inappropriate.
David, I know there are very strong feelings about this case on both sides. A lot of Democrats think that she wouldn't come forward unless this happened, and even though she doesn't remember key details, that's okay. If this has to go on another 2 or 3 weeks, so be it. But it's interesting to note how this is proceeding as a legal matter at the same time, because even though it's not a legal setting, a courtroom, one would think that making a demand that you have to speak after Brett Kavanaugh is a little rich. Don't you think at this point, since she's the one making the accusation?
Well, it's not a court of law, but it certainly makes sense that the accusation has to come first and that the person being accused gets to hear exactly what the accusation is and then respond to it. Some of her other demands, I do think, make some sense that, not having all these cameras, not having all of these things that, high officials are used to, but she's not used to that. And she's just going to tell her side of the story. And I kind of agree with, I guess it's Kellyanne Conway, who said that, she should be accommodated. And giving her one more day is accommodating her. She shouldn't be attacked. And I think Republicans would have a Pyrrhic victory, wouldn't they, if they ended up losing the House and Senate because they mistreated her instead of giving her one more day and hearing everyone's side of the story. Of course, I think they should also hear Mark Judge's side of the story because, when you're a prosecutor, as I was, you always say, there's one more witness they could have called. Why didn't they call him? The defense has the power of subpoena. Let them call Mark Judge if Mark Judge is so important. But, here, the Democrats don't have the power to call Mark Judge.
Well,
the Democrats don't have the power to call him.
Actually, David, that's not true. What the Democrats could have done, and John, you can react to this, what the Democrats could have done, they could have gone out and done their own investigation. They could have interviewed Mark Judge. They could have interviewed Patrick Smythe. They could have gotten actually quite a bit done in the last 72, 96 hours or so. But instead, what the Democrats are doing is they're going on TV talking about how Kavanaugh is a sexual predator, someone that I've known for 28 years or so. John, I know you've known him for a long time. Your reaction to this latest demand by the accuser's legal team?
Laura, you actually put your finger on it when you said this isn't actually a courtroom. This is not a criminal trial. This is the Senate performing its constitutional job to give advice and consent. It is a political process and a legal process, but it's not a criminal trial. The Senate doesn't need the FBI to conduct a criminal investigation. As you say, Laura, each side has committee staff. They can go out and interview people. They can interview them under oath. I think that's the most important thing that has to happen is the stories have to be gotten under oath, under pain of perjury from both Judge Kavanaugh and from Dr. Ford. The timing is actually important. The sooner the better, because as time goes on, people could adjust their stories and change them in response to what they're hearing in the public. I'm worried about that. I think actually the committee is right to try to freeze the stories in place as soon as possible so that people can't start changing their stories. That would be even worse than moving the goalposts.
Well, the Republicans
already
did
you've lost that.
Right. Well, the Republicans did get both Judge and Patrick Smythe. They did interview them, and they did sign declarations, which were signed under penalty of felony, correct? I mean, so that was done. Democrats could have taken part in the questioning. They decided not to. And going back to what David Katz said, you got to be more accommodating to the accuser. I think the president was right. Let her speak. But to say that the Senate wasn't accommodating, they could have interviewed her at home in California. They said they would. Grassley said he would do it behind closed doors, in public, would be questioned by an outside counsel, which I thought, because it's all these white men up there, it would have been better to have an outside counsel, especially a woman, ask the questions. Now they don't want that. So it seems like they've been quite accommodating, except on, well, we're not going to do it whenever you want to do it, because you don't get to dictate the terms. John, I want you to listen, and all of you, to part of the letter that was released, again, just about an hour ago, from the Kavanaugh accuser's attorney. The imposition of aggressive and artificial deadlines regarding the dates and condition of any hearing has created tremendous and unwarranted anxiety and stress on Dr. Ford. Your cavalier treatment of a sexual assault survivor who has been doing her best to cooperate with the committee is completely inappropriate. John Lauro, cavalier treatment of a sexual assault survivor seems more to me like a political statement than it does to be from a lawyer who wants to actually make some headway in these negotiations.
It's all about politics. If she was serious about having her client testify, she would have made that decision certainly by now to put her before the public. Let me just say one thing. She is going to be treated with kid gloves. Under no circumstances is she going to be abused or treated disrespectfully. That would be counterintuitive to what the Republican majority wants to do. So the reality is they've bent over backwards to have her come in under appropriate circumstances. Let's remember one thing. An accuser does not get to call the shots. This is a process with deadlines. She's decided to come forward, and now she has to testify truthfully and honestly and face the music.
David.
Well, I was a prosecutor. I've also defended people in the same situation as Judge Kavanaugh, who are faced with charges that seem absolutely unbelievable, and they're totally denied by my clients, and I've gotten not guilties. And there are rules of procedure in court. The rules are less clear in the Senate. My point is that the Republicans and the committee should not be seen as not giving her a fair shot, as not hearing her story, as not understanding that there's a very unreported crime, as Senator Collins has pointed out. And President Trump should treat her with respect at all times, including in his tweets. And the Republicans, for their own sake, should treat her with respect. And all the women in this situation, a man in this situation, they don't come forward all the time. Sometimes it's a long time before they make these allegations. Everybody can understand that. And as I say, it's a Pyrrhic victory if they lose the House and the Senate by mistreating her or being cavalier with her. And I don't think she's asked for so much.
No one's being cavalier.
Laura, I don't think she's asked for so much. She's asked for one more day.
David, the vote was supposed to be yesterday. The vote was supposed to be yesterday. Feinstein, John Yoo, had the letter in July. The Democrats, Seidman, Randy Seidman, I think, was already plotting about how to derail Kavanaugh, the same person who's now advising the legal team on overall, process and PR. This has turned into a political cudgel to be used both against Kavanaugh, the Republicans, Donald Trump, all the way to the midterm elections. That might sound cynical, but I've been in Washington for 30 years, and Brett Kavanaugh is getting no respect, in my view, in this process. He's not being respected too well himself. John.
Laura, I agree with you. Not only do we show respect to Dr. Ford, we also have to show respect not just to Judge Kavanaugh, we have to show respect for the Senate. What's gone on here, I think, is that the Senate has been manipulated, that these charges were held back until the very last minute even after the hearings were over. And so what the Senate has to do is make sure it does its constitutional job. This is not about a forum for airing grievances. The Senate has to find out the truth. There's no forensic evidence anymore. The only thing that's left is the witness testimony. The senators have to put them under oath, and while being respectful, we have found in our legal system the best way to get the truth is to subject both witnesses to questioning and cross-examination. I don't think that anyone should be treated with kid gloves or treated differently. We ask this of people in cases every day in courtrooms around the country in these kinds of cases. I don't think we should expect any less, and give respect to Kavanaugh and to Dr. Ford, but show them respect by expecting them to tell the truth under oath and be subject and willing to answer questions and cross-examination.
Right, and we don't change the cameras or the lighting. I mean, this is only one camera angle. What is that? I mean, if you're gonna launch that kind of allegation against someone this late in the game, 36 years later, then come along and say, "Oh no, but I don't want a camera and a woman can't ask the question." To me, that's just I don't know.
Laura,
I don't like the feel of any of that.
Laura, we have to respect victims too. We have to respect alleged victims.
Okay, guys. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going on. But when I heard the camera thing, I thought, everybody who goes up before that committee has to have the same
Senate agreed
cameras.
to that, Laura.
Yeah,
Laura, the Senate agreed to that.
Did I say they didn't? I thought it was really, really goofy. Okay, if you look silly and goofy, it sets a terrible precedent. I don't like that precedent of having to change the process
She's a
so late
victim.
in the game.
She's a victim. She's not used to that. She's not used to that.
We don't know that.
A lot of us aren't used to this because it's so late in the game.